Hey guys, good morning. Anthony here, Bibles and Barbells. It's Saturday, April 6, 2019. And I can tell you what, guys, this year is flying by so far. Gosh, we're already in April, and I don't know where time's going. But I do know that time is not on our side if we are preparing for the worst. And one of the things that I want to focus on this year, and I have been focusing on, is the seriousness of what is confronting us here in our country as I speak. We have, and you know, I don't have to name politicians' names or even the media's names. We know and we have seen some of the people that are already and have been entrenched in our government for years, that are traitors, that are not they're not Americans in my book, or how I define an American patriot, somebody that's loyal to the Constitution, that serves the people, that is for the rule of law. These people are for lawlessness, they're for greed, and they're for themselves. And so many of them are serving in government, in you know, from the local level all the way up to the federal level. And then we have the media, that is their operating arm, their propaganda arm, if you will. Try not to get blinded this year and leading up to the new elections in this Republican-Democrat stuff, because many of them are the same, you know, the same side of the, two sides of the same coin, if you will. So in preparing for that, we see around the world countries that were once great, thriving, prosperous countries. The most recent example, Venezuela, that I always bring up, and you can see what's happening there when they let a rogue leader, actually they elected a leader who was socialist and who promised them the world and who had a good spiel, a good talk, if you will. He fooled the people, and then you see what happens in the end. And so I believe our country is headed in that same direction. Will it take a little longer to fall than, say, Venezuela? Maybe, maybe not. It's all depending on how fast they want to pull the plug on the country. Because the type of society we live in today is electronic, it's data-driven, it's everything is press a button and everything is there as you need it. We depend on electricity, we depend on you know, just-in-time delivery for our food and our goods. And so if any of those things are disrupted, we could be in an SHTF in an overnight situation. So it's all as fast as they want to pull the plug, or as fast as they want to change the way of life of Americans. And so with that, we need those people that are prepping, those people that you may be prepping and not even call yourself a prepper. You may be just an aware citizen that doesn't want this way of life shoved down their throats. And now they have a new breed of up-and-coming politician that's younger and much more brutal than the older ones that are in place already. And so we need to, as Americans, decide what we want and how we want to live moving forward. And so with that, we need to educate ourselves. We need to be ready. We need to be ready at a moment's notice, if you will, as well. And I have several videos on my channel way back, a few years back, when I was living in Florida, at a moment's notice, on how to steps to take at a moment's notice if you needed to bug out, or if you needed to move from point A to point B, what you needed to have in place for that. But this video today, I want to focus on, I'm reading a few books at the same time. Two of them I started, one I haven't started. One of the ones that I did start, I want to read an excerpt out of today. And this is the Dark Secrets of SHTF Survival by Selco Begovic. Okay, and for those of you who watch my channel, I have a lot of videos on Selco's writings and his blog that I've been following for years now. So you'll see many videos on my channel, you know, focusing on some of the topics that he's talked about in the past. So he finally put a book together, and it is fantastic. I think I've read 80 pages already. It's a 300-page book, and it's about his 1 year in hell, if you will, during the Balkan Wars in the 90s, and how he did not heed the warnings, did not see the signs, or if he did, he didn't get out of Dodge. And he was stuck in his city for 1 year and had to survive basically in hell. And he gives a really true picture of what it takes to survive, and how a lot of the commercialized prepping that's going on in this country, in America, it's turned into a big business, if you will. But you need to read something like Selco's book, because it'll bring you down to earth. And we want to look at the top 5 things that'll surprise you in an SHTF. And I'm going to actually, go right from the book and just read through some of the things that he's talking about in those top 5 things that'll surprise you. A second book that I'm reading that's very good also, that also can get us, many people that follow my channel are also involved and know that I've been involved in, Bible study, Bible teaching, Bible truth, and talked about in videos that our country is, many of the churches that people are going to are in fact either mixing New Age practices and beliefs, embracing New Age practices and beliefs within the teachings, and trying to blend the two together with so-called Christendom. This book is excellent. It's written by Stephen Bankhars and Josh Peck, who were both involved in New Age practices and beliefs before they were born again, before they were saved by Yeshua, and very in-depth study on New Age practices and beliefs, Eastern mysticism, and a lot of things that you would think that are very safe practices, or that doesn't really apply today, because I'm doing it because of this or this, and I know when to draw the line and when I need to, when I need to stop. Well, they address that stuff in this book, and you'll be surprised at some of the things you might be embracing or have embraced in the past, or maybe practicing now, that you need to renounce. You need to, put it on the table, put it down to Yahweh, and ask Him for forgiveness, and ask Him to give you the power to move on. So, The Second Coming of the New Age, another great book. You can get it on Amazon, okay? And then a third book that I haven't started reading yet that I've heard about, and so that's The Resistance to Tyranny by Joseph P. Martino. Okay, and that's basically a book that he gives a step-by-step, or an overview, if you will, on how to recognize when tyranny is upon us and steps to resist it. And we're already at that point in the United States here where we need to start resisting tyranny, because tyranny is upon us, I believe. And if you just look out there and what's going on, what our politicians are speaking about, what the media is talking about or not talking about, you can really see that tyranny is upon us. They want us to, submit to a style that's foreign to many of us, but that has been embraced by many also in this country. And so there's that, putting one group against another, or groups against one another, while the upper echelon sits back and waits for them to destroy each other, and then to swoop in and put the new system into place. That's happening inch by inch, brick by brick, and it has been in this country for years, but it also can be fostered upon us in an instant. And so that's why I choose, and hopefully, you yourselves are choosing also to be ready for that when it's fostered upon us, because it's not going to be a pretty situation, and it very well be much worse than Selco's experience in the Balkans, because it's a lot smaller of an area and less people will be involved. In our country, a lot bigger landmass, many more millions of people involved, and so the death, the bloodshed, the mayhem, the SHTF, if you will be magnified maybe 100 or 1,000-fold to what Selco went through. So that's something to think about. So in today's video, I want to discuss or talk about, and then just skim through in the book here on page, starting on page 30. It says the things that will surprise you most when the SHTF happens. He does a course in in his country called A Mile in My Shoes, where he takes students out and about and he shows them the terrain, the landscape, the buildings, the areas where he had to survive, or he went through a lot of his experiences. And so he says here, I thought I would share the top 5 surprises that students encountered, meaning things that they had not thought about or realized during the course. Okay, number 1, how close the fighting will be. The picture taken, and he has a picture here of houses very close together on a street in his city, and was one of the front lines for some time. One side was in houses on the left of the alley. The other side, the enemy, if you will, was on the other side, or the right side of the houses, and these are right across the alley from each other. He says this seems incredibly close, and it is, but then realize there were times when the dividing lines were even closer than this. Putting it into perspective, you can start to think about new reality, because there is nothing very static and sure when there's an SHTF. One day the house next to you can be completely safe. Another day there might be someone inside who wants to harm you, or simply you'll never be sure how safe and secure your surroundings are. A lot of people in a relatively small area, and you'll have a high demand for a very limited amount of resources because the system is gone. So in his case, the system was destroyed, and the people were living, very close to each other. Can be a simple townhome environment here in the United States, or a close, urban city where people are living very close. And now all of a sudden, the system's down, and they have to fight for limited resources and supplies. Number 2, the enemy will look, sound, and speak like you. They may even have been your longtime friends, but are now on the opposite side. Fighting here was divided by all sorts of reasons: race, religion, affiliation, heritage, politics, and often a mixed bag of all these things. Sides were also changing as well. That's just the enemy. When it comes to survival, you will fight to get what you need or protect what you have from whoever. This fantasy about foreign forces like Russia or China invading our country, where everyone's going to speak another language and the dividing line will be, us and them, that's a fallacy. I think that may happen one day, but that's a fallacy in a SHTF that we are going to experience here in the United States. It's going to be people right around you, your neighbors and people that you know. Strong systems are going to have a bigger and longer fall. There are way too many people and weapons in the U.S. for some foreign force to come choose to invade. That is right now, of course. What is possible is to push some country into chaos. Push some country into chaos. Think about what's happening here in the United States, in order to turn on themselves, suffer hunger, prolonged chaos, and similar, and maybe then to invade. Think about that sentence that I just read. It's very likely to happen in this country, because that's the way they're pushing things right now. In the end, it all comes down to people who want to harm you. Expect people who look, act, and talk like you, who want to survive just like you. Again, we come to the point that you will be forced to fight with your neighbors and fellow countrymen for resources. Number 3, how busy an average day was. Fighting for survival is an all-day, everyday task. You are constantly hunting, scavenging, gathering, finding information, looking and checking things, all while the most stressed you've ever been and under constant threat, all while being hungry and thirsty. So think about that if you're not prepping right now on a basic level. There's no day off, there's no break. It's a big difference between a soldier and a civilian in a war. He goes on to say here, a soldier has everything, all his things cared for. He's being fed, he's being clothed, he's being given weapons, he's given a specific mission, and he's given the ability to follow that mission and the support structure behind him to carry out that mission, where us in a SHTF won't have that structure behind this. You have to build that structure so you can have it in order to survive. Okay? In an SHTF, you are first unit, rear, and backup. If you F up, he says, break your leg, there is no medical evacuation. If you do not find food or any other resources, there is no service that's going to come to help you. You are everything when SHTF, because the system is gone. Number 4, the level of the threat. In SHTF, almost everything is a threat to you. It's easy to understand threats like a sniper, gangs, angry neighbors, etc. But the lack of food, the complete lack of hygiene, lack of contamination, risk of illness, level of contamination, risk of illness, injury being found, being informed on, being tricked, getting captured, and many, many more make up a larger amount of threats than most ever think of. Now, most people don't think of hygiene. What am I going to do with the waste that I'm producing? What am I going to do if I get a cut or an infection? There's no hospitals. Do I have some basic medical care in order to take care of that? What am I going to do about people that I can no longer trust anymore, that are informing on me, and maybe informing on me for money or for food, and then a bigger group's going to come and try to tackle or take my goods? So just start to imagine every supply you take for granted. Fuel, electricity, water, stores, emergency services being taken away and not knowing when it will ever come back. Imagine the worst person you have ever known, someone you would not trust to help you in any situation. Now imagine everyone around you is like that person. People that you wave to, people that you see washing their car, people that you see at the grocery store, can all be that very worst person that you've ever imagined. This is what he's trying to stress here. The level of threat is going to be a big shock to you in the beginning. And shock is good because then you get yourself into mode of real surviving. No matter how well you are prepared, you will go through shock. With good preparation and the correct mentality, you can minimize that shock and make it shorter. That is the real point of prepping. Number 5, and the final point I want to make in today's video. I know all points I mentioned don't bother you that much, as you have a nice house, lots of supplies, and you're ready to fight. The reality of defending your assets. But how is your plan working since your house or apartments looks like this? And he shows a burned out shell of a building here. Rubble. Anyone who is fit must go out and find a lot of things every day for survival. How are you going to protect all your stuff when you're not home? Have you thought of that? Who's going to watch your place when you're gone? What about when one day a big group comes to ask you how you're doing? So okay, what have you here? What have you there? You know, a bigger group comes to your neighborhood or to the place where you're surviving and wants to know, hey, what's going on, buddy? Let's check out some of your gear. To protect your stuff from them is a clear death sentence. What will you do then? Or have you thought of that? Because remember, the bad guys could be good guys now in prior SHTF and afterwards become or align themselves with gangs, with warlords, if you will, and come out and scavenge and just to survive, align themselves with these people and not care about you or your family. Think about that. Do you have the right mindset? It means the difference between defending something and getting killed, adapting yourself in order to survive without it. So what he's saying here, you may have to leave what you have in order to get away from this larger gang that's coming your way, because there's really no way to fight them. You've got to live to fight another day. So do you have somewhere to fall back to? You have to accept that the fact maybe you'll be forced to survive only with your skills. Understand that in SHTF, every house in the city is not going to look like this, or worse, not even be there. In my city, there are many houses you see like this. You see them because they are made of stone or concrete. You don't see the wood buildings because they were all burned down. And so that's the 5 points I wanted to point out today. And in this this book is really a great book. And also, if you can go on, I'll put the links in the description box. If you could go on and check out his blog and some other things. But very important information here, guys. Both on the prepping end, on the spiritual prepping, on knowing what's coming our way down the road. It's not a rosy picture, guys. And no one person or aligning yourself with a political group like conservatives is going to help stave off what they plan and what they have coming to this country, because it's not good. So the people have to get shoulder to shoulder in like-mindedness, not by color of skin, ethnic background, like they want to portray and demonize and tell you things and get us infighting. They want that. That's part of the plan, the socialist, the communist plan of how to destroy a nation, a culture, if you will, and usher in their system. That does not work, that will not work, and has never worked. It only produces death, mayhem, starvation, and people to pray and wish that they had never accepted it in the first place. And so as you see the push for gun control, sensible gun control, all these bills being drafted and pushed, they've all been on the shelf. They're all just coming out now because now is the time that they see that their time is now to strike while the iron is hot. And so whenever they try to take away our rights, slowly but surely, chipping away like somebody building chipping away or making a plaster statue, that's what they're doing. They're chipping away at our rights that have been granted to us, that's been granted to us by Yahweh above, that they cannot take away. And so remember, those rights are yours, and they're not to be taken away by any government or any entity that tells you what you can and cannot do. Thank you for watching, guys. Take care. Stay ready. Hopefully you'll get some of these books. Educate, read, prep, pray, and be ready for what's coming. Anthony signing off. Let me know your thoughts. Take care. Stay ready.